Senator Marco Rubio, Republican from the state of Florida, joins me now. Mr. Senator, Rashida Tlaib, this is my opinion, is pushing Hamas lies in Congress. What can be done about that, sir?
Well, she's elected. I think the only thing that could be done is for people to vote against her unless she crosses certain lines. But the bottom line is that the Democratic Party, I'll acknowledge, the overwhelming majority of Democrats do not support the position she's taken. But I think they're reckoning with the fact that because they want these votes for Speaker, because those votes, 10, 12, 13 members, helped them have majorities in the past or keep them close now, it's an important and critical part of their base. That element, not just of members, but of voters. And they are now reckoning with the fact that in their base of supporters, they have people that are, in essence, at least abetting terrorist groups like Hamas by justifying, or at a minimum, distracting away from the attacks and the atrocities they've committed.
Mr. Senator, you want to cancel visas for Hamas supporters who are in the United States. How do you identify them? Do you know who they are?
Well, first of all, they did a pretty good job of identifying virtually everyone who showed up on the Capitol on January 6th. They took videos, they took pictures, they looked at social media posts. I'm not claiming you're going to find everybody, but there are plenty of people out there that aren't hiding it. Look, here, it's the law. The law says this. Think about it this way. There is no right to a visa. A visa is a guest pass that we give people from other countries to come here for some purpose, to visit, to be a student, to be a professor, whatever. Okay? If in that application, you put things in there that indicate that you might be a supporter of Hamas or Hezbollah or any of these groups, they wouldn't let you in, or they're not supposed to let you in. Well, what do you do if after they get in, they do those things? Well, if they're not entitled to have a visa coming in if they support these groups, then they shouldn't have one once they're here and support these groups. And those visas need to be canceled. So if we come across someone who is out there, and I don't think it would be hard to find a few, who is out there, who's supporting Hamas, parroting Hamas's lines, and they are foreigners, they are visitors to this country, they need to go, they should be removed. And I tried to pass this yesterday, and we had a Democrat come to the floor and object. I don't know if it was on his behalf or on behalf of the Democratic caucus. It's absurd, it's ridiculous. Overwhelming majority of Americans would agree. You're a Hamas supporter, you're here on a foreign visa, you need to go.
What's your judgment of President Biden's visit to Israel?
I thought it was important to show that the United States is on their side. I think as he leaves Israel, we're facing a new development that is not getting enough attention yet. That is, these Iran-sponsored and controlled groups in Syria and in Iraq are stepping up, substantially stepping up attacks against American forces in Iraq and in Syria. And I think it's critically important today, if he hasn't done so already, that the Biden administration either say or reiterate to the Iranians that we're not looking to get into a regional war. But if our forces are attacked by these groups, we will regard that as an attack by Iran against the United States, and we will have no choice but to retaliate directly as a result of it. It's really important. I'm very concerned about that. We've seen that development over the last 24 hours, and it seems to be ramping up, and it could really begin to spiral.
President Biden asked for more military spending. I'm sure the Republicans will be on board with that, but are the Democrats?
Well, I think everyone's on board with whatever Israel needs. I'm curious and interested to see what that $10 billion is about. The good news is there is a lot of aid to Israel that's already codified. I actually passed a law in 2021 that codified it, so we wouldn't have to go through this exercise in Congress in an emergency. What I think Israel will need assistance with is resupply as this conflict emerges. And obviously what they're going to need and how much is going to depend on what kind of conflict we're talking about. If it's just a Gaza event, it's one thing. If it's Gaza and something up north or broader, God forbid, it's something totally different.
Senator Rubio, we just covered 4 subjects in 3.5 minutes, and I think that's pretty good going, and you covered it so well. Thanks for being with us, Mr. Senator. We always appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me, Stuart.
Yes, sir.